Saloom. He's an assistant professor of international politics at Doha Institute for Graduate Studies. Really good to have you with us on Al Jazeera. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said from the outset that Iran's leadership is going to, as he put it, be decimated. It's going to be, the leadership is going to be destroyed, and yet we are seeing repeatedly successors step into the places of those who are killed. The suggestion has always been by Israel, that, or at least the Israeli government, that they are trying to create the circumstances under which it would allow the Iranian people to rise up against the government. Given the circumstances that we've seen, how realistic is that?
Well, I don't know about change. That would be up to the great people of Iran. But what we are looking at here is the counterintelligence of Iran seems to be punctured in many places, and that Israel and the United States, they are making a lot of success when it comes to the decapitation of the leadership of Iran. If we step back now and we look at Iran today, after 18 days of this war, we really would not recognize who are the leaders of Iran. The top leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei, has been killed along with other if you like, lesser important leaders under that bunker, 39, I think, the total. They have assassinated most recently Larijani, the national security advisor, along with Ali Rida Ghulam, the director of Basij, or the leader of Basij, which is the local force tasked with keeping order in all Iranian cities. And just before coming to the studio, I hear that the assassination of the director of intelligence, who is a minister in Iran, has been confirmed. So what we are looking at here is that a whole line of leadership, first line and second line at least, have been decapitated. And let's not forget as well that last June, Israel was successful in killing so many Iranian commanders and leaders, as well as scientists. So in that department, they are doing very well. Whether that would be translated into regime change on the ground in Iran is a different question.
One of the issues is, of course, that the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard, said fairly early on that if there were any protests that were going to be against the government, they would be dealt with as severely as they were dealt with in January. Let's not forget, several thousand people were killed in those protests. Is there any, from your understanding, is there any sort of incentive that people have in Iran at the moment to actually rise up against their leadership when they are, on a daily basis, having to just deal with the bombardment that they are under by the US and by Israel?
What I see in front of me is that the US and Israel, they have a strategy at the moment, and I think it is, we're not there yet. Trump said this very clearly. He said the Iranian people are not capable now of rising against the regime. The regime is still very powerful. But maybe I comment on who said that we would be dealing with the people severely if they would rise up. Everybody who said that, I think they have been neutralized, killed already. So the regime itself is now busy with two things: trying to keep the momentum of the war, controlling what the IRGC is doing in response to the Israeli and US attacks, and also pressuring GCC countries by attacking, Qatar, UAE, and other countries in the region, as well as busy keeping its leadership safe. After the assassinations are continuing, and they are killing the leaders and the top leaders of the country. So I think, and I think that is what's keeping them busy. But also that is a familiar Israeli tactic. I remember one of the former Mossad directors once said in an interview that this is one of our tactics, and it's part of our doctrine. We threaten in names who we are going to kill, and this would keep them, would occupy 50% of their time trying to protect themselves and evade our surveillance. And now, the Israeli intelligence and U.S. intelligence services, they have established a credible threat to every leader in the country. So what we are looking at here is a strategy that is led by both countries, trying to degrade Iran's force and also disrupt command and control, with the hope, I think what they hope is that in the near future, the regime would be weak enough for the people to rise against it.
I want to talk about timelines with this, because we understand that Israel's military has been given the authorization to go after other Iranian senior leadership, just target and kill them without seeking authorization further up the chain. In terms of the timelines that Israel and the US are working to, we get the sense that Donald Trump is, to some degree, trying to find a way out of this, trying to find a victory that would draw a line at this. The sense that we're getting from Israel is that this is a longer-term game. What's your assessment of where those two timelines are going to work and, of course, what that means for the conflict broadly?
Great. Well, when we look at the US, as you said, is under a tight timeline because of so many reasons and so many pressures, not to mention the Strait of Hormuz, which has been under focus, but also there are other reasons, domestic and relevant to elections and to Trump's base population. But then also with Israel, they need to finish this soon. Their economy is under a lot of stress and their safety as well. So we're looking at weeks, probably between 4 to 6 weeks. That is a reasonable timeline, and then they would move to a different phase in the conflict.
In terms of this lack of authorization, or the lack of need for authorization further up the chain that the Israeli military has been given, given the fact that they are now on a kind of more local level going to be allowed to target and attempt to kill individuals, what are the risks involved in that if it is not necessarily the case that they have to refer it further back up the chain? Are we likely to see more civilian casualties as a result of this?
Definitely. Well, we have seen this in Gaza. And what they have done is using AI in targeting, identifying targets and authorizing drones and planes to, target whoever they see, whoever AI deems as the target or a credible target. But also, this is a different situation where, they would be targeting buildings where civilians are. Or buildings hiding among civilians. So the collateral damage, or so-called collateral damage, would be much higher. And this is risky, not in terms of violating international law or human rights law, which I don't think that either countries, Israel or the US, is very much concerned about at the moment. But it is also in terms of turning the Iranian people against them. And, these people might rally around whatever left of the regime and defending their country because they see that, the number of civilians being killed has been steadily increasing, and that Israel and the US is not caring is not taking care of the people, and they don't care if the civilians are killed. So I think it's a balance. They would target probably the nodes, the critical nodes of security that is holding the regime together, and also that is holding or keeping the grip of the regime on the population so that they don't rise.
I really appreciate you breaking that down for us. Mohanad Saloom, thank you very much indeed. Well, Israel has carried out 5 strikes on central Beirut within a few hours. The attacks targeted densely populated residential areas of the capital, killing at least 10 people. The Israeli military has also struck southern Lebanon's largest city, Sidon. Israel's bombing campaigns displaced more than 1 million people in Lebanon. Al Jazeera's Zina Khadr reports from Beirut.
The Israeli military escalating its attacks, expanding their scopes, targeting buildings in central Beirut. It appears to be part of a maximum pressure campaign being exerted, not just against Hezbollah, but the Lebanese government. Israel's defense minister has told the government to stop Hezbollah's attacks against Israel, or else Israel will take control of territory. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying that the Lebanese government has been told it will pay a price if it does not confront Hezbollah. The Lebanese government in a difficult position. It has taken what has been described really as unprecedented decisions against Hezbollah, outlawing its military wing, and the Lebanese government reaffirming that it is committed to reclaiming state sovereignty. But the Prime Minister has said that they cannot enforce these measures at a time of war, during wartime. But it seems that the army, the Lebanese army, has been treading carefully. The army chief has come under some criticism for taking a conciliatory approach toward Hezbollah and focusing instead on, quote, national unity. That's the word the words he's been using time and time again, the need for national unity, because the army chief is concerned that taking on Hezbollah or confronting Hezbollah could split the army along sectarian lines and cause internal divisions. So very dangerous times for Lebanon. The international community, and particularly the United States, clearly not happy with the way the Lebanese government has dealt with Hezbollah. The government has appealed to the U.S. to intervene to stop these attacks. The Trump administration remaining silent, with the White House saying that they support, quote, Israel's right to self-defense as it continues to face threats. So these attacks are expected to continue to escalate as more pressure is being piled on the government to act against Hezbollah, all the while Israel threatening to expand its scope of operations, its military operations in Lebanon. Zana Khadr, Al Jazeera, Beirut.
And Barney Smith has more from near Sidon.
Now, over my shoulder there, those two chimneys in the distance, a power station just next to it is the Litani River, the new line that Israel says people must evacuate beyond, those south of that line. Above us, the sounds of Israeli warplanes. They've been here all morning, and there have been airstrikes in the distance. There's also been strikes along the road down by the seaside there behind me. Israel saying it's targeting Hezbollah infrastructure that could be where they're launching rockets from, for example. But just being beyond that line is no guarantee of protection. There was a strike on a vehicle in Sidon earlier, that targeting, Israel says, a member of Hamas. He was killed as he tried to run from the vehicle, and also a member of the fire service who happened to be nearby was also killed. So just being beyond that line is no guarantee of protection. Israel is targeting wherever, whoever, and whenever it wants. Bernard Smith, Al Jazeera, near the Litani River, Lebanon.
Well, earlier, the spokeswoman of the Lebanese presidency held a news conference outlining the issues the government has discussed during a security meeting.
President Joseph Aoun presided over a security meeting to discuss the situation in the country, including Israeli aggressions. During the meeting, they reviewed a security report covering developments across Lebanon, the expansion of Israeli aggression, as well as casualties and displacement. They also discussed the situation along the Syrian border and coordination efforts to maintain security and stability there. The issue of Syrian displaced persons was addressed, including the return of 100,000 individuals and the facilities provided to them. In addition, they examined the situation in the country during the Eid period, stressing the need for the readiness of Lebanese security forces.
Now, Iran's been targeting its Gulf neighbours with repeated drone and missile attacks. Air defences in the United Arab Emirates intercepted several strikes over Dubai. The city briefly shut its airspace. Missiles and drones have also been intercepted in Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Bahrain. We're going to go to Zain Bashrawi, who's in Dubai for us. Zain, so daily missile strikes in GCC countries. UAE seems to be affected badly. Walk through the effect that the strikes have been having on Dubai.
That is correct. So far since this morning, every country in the GCC once again has come under attack except for Oman. And throughout the course of this war, the UAE has been the most harshly affected by Iran's retaliatory strikes. And about an hour ago, there were two very large explosions that sounded very close to where we are now. The windows began rattling. Peculiarly, there was no alert ahead of those explosions. But the UAE Defense Ministry is saying that it remains on high alert and remains capable of defending the airspace and the sovereignty of the country ongoing. And what we have is in the last hour or so, they've put out a statement saying that the UAE air defense has engaged Iranian ballistic and cruise missiles and UAV attacks throughout the course of today. A total of 27 drones and 13 ballistic missiles were confronted by Emirati Air Force and air defenses. And what we do understand is that at least in one circumstance, there was an impact. The Australian Defence Forces that are based at the Al Minhad Air Base here in the UAE, not far from where we are here in Dubai, saying that, and again, the Australian Defence Forces have had a long-standing presence at this base, as have ISAF and NATO forces throughout the years. No personnel were injured. The Australians saying that minor damage was caused to an accommodation facility there, as well as medical facilities at that base. And once again, the UAE has borne the brunt of Iran's retaliation, of around 3,000 or so projectiles that have been launched since Iran began attacking its Arab neighbors. Well over half of that, around 1,699, according to the UAE Defense Ministry, have targeted sites in the United Arab Emirates.
I understand Zain, Gulf countries are going to be meeting in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia later on. I would imagine the agenda is going to be dominated by the security issues the region's facing. What are you hearing about that?
That is correct, especially over the course of the events of just today. More assassinations. Once again, we're hearing reports of Israel targeting Iranian energy infrastructure. These are going to be major concerns for the foreign ministers meeting in Riyadh. They're going to be from the GCC, other Arab countries, other Islamic countries. And what we are seeing is Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who is laser focused on the issue of stability in the region. We'll be trying to steer everyone's attention back to getting to a place where we can stabilize the region's security and thereby the region's economy. And that has taken a major hit since this war began. With those targetings that we've seen of Israel assassinating Iranian leaders, targeting energy infrastructure again, leaders in this region are going to be concerned that that retaliation that is inevitably going to come from Iran is going to reach out to their energy infrastructure once again, as Israel continues to say that it will target anyone it wants in the Iranian leadership. And Iran says that it will start using ammunition and weapons that are more precise, more potent, and more difficult to track. That's going to be of serious concern for the countries here in the GCC that are literally caught geographically and politically in the middle of the US and Israel on one side and Iran on the other. What we're likely to see them say is that war is inherently expansive. The longer it goes on, the worse it's going to get. And ultimately, they are criticizing Iran for these retaliatory attacks. But there is a political nuance there. They do see the gray area, where they see this as something that the Israelis and the United States began, a war of their choosing. So there is still appeal to try to get back to a place where we can negotiate. But what leaders have been telling Iran all the time, Arab leaders from here, from this region, have been telling Iran that until there is an end to Iran attacking its Arab neighbors, there can be no forward momentum in terms of trying to find a negotiated solution. What they'll be trying to do is use diplomacy and political pressure to try to bring an end to the fighting.
Reporting for us from Dubai, that's Zain Basravi. I want to bring in Asad Beg, who's in Baghdad. Baghdad is one of the places in Iraq that has been under attack, so of course have areas in Erbil as well. Can you just bring us up to date with the latest that's been going on?
Yes, Iraq is one of those countries, like the other regional countries, that has been caught up in this conflict. It's spilling over onto its territory. Now, the green zone where the U.S. compound is based, U.S. Embassy compound is based here in Baghdad, has come under repeated drone and missile attack. Now, last night, we understand a number of drones targeted the embassy. According to authorities, 2 of those were intercepted. We understand 1 fell near the embassy and started a fire. Another one was targeting the Victory base near the Baghdad International Airport. Again, that was intercepted, we're told, and again, debris fell down in the vicinity and started a fire. In Erbil, in the north of Iraq, in the semi-autonomous Kurdish region, we understand that Iranian Kurdish opposition group's headquarters were targeted by 2 drones. We're hearing reports of casualties, and again, this is a continued strategy by armed groups, factions here in Iraq, aligned with Iran, that are targeting US assets and interests and bases, as well as Iranian opposition Kurdish groups. Now, those groups are being targeted because US President Donald Trump, at the start of this conflict, said he would like to see them possibly mount a ground operation. Then he backtracked that support hasn't materialized, but Iran and groups aligned to it are taking no chances. And just to give you the broader context, Iraq is the only country that's been hit by multiple sides, by Iran, by the United States carrying out airstrikes against armed factions, and those armed groups inside the country in Iraq carrying out attacks inside its own borders. So it puts Baghdad in a very difficult position and trying to balance between these different powers.
Yeah, Asad, just as you've been talking to us, been looking at some of the pictures that have been happening in Baghdad of those strikes that you've been talking about. It's worth remembering, of course, as well, Iraq, a major oil producer. It stopped exporting oil when there were a couple of tankers that were hit off its southern coast. But I understand those oil exports have now resumed to some degree. What more do we know about that?
Well, what's happened is that they've agreed with the semi-autonomous Kurdish region in the north of Iraq to use the pipeline to take oil to Jiyan, in the Turkish port. Now, there was some issues going on, and some to and fro and some debates going on between the semi-autonomous region, but now what it does is puts Iraqi oil back on the market and at a time where oil exports are needed. And it's significant for a number of reasons. It allows Iraq to recoup some of those finances, finances that they've lost because they haven't been exporting. And politically, it means that the dispute has been put aside because of the wider issue going on in this conflict. But internationally, there was pressure too. The U.S. ambassador to Turkey had spoken to authorities in Erbil, tried to facilitate this deal to try and get this oil flowing. So it doesn't fix the entire issue, but it does put Iraqi oil back on the market at a time where the energy sector really needs it.
Asad Beg talking to us there from Baghdad. Asad, as always, thank you very much indeed. Well, the U.S. says it's carried out strikes on Iranian missile sites near the Strait of Hormuz. The waterway is a vital global trade route, and it's largely been closed since the conflict began. My colleague Rishad Salamat spoke to journalist Insamam Rashid about the situation in the strait.
The US forces have targeted the coast of Iran. Around 50 miles or so in that direction is Iran, and there are a number of missile sites on the coast of the Strait of Hormuz, which have been targeted overnight with multiple 5,000-pound deep penetrator bombs on these Iranian missile sites. We don't know what the damage yet has been done, if any, or whether these missile sites are in fact completely destroyed. But the US had said that the reason they did this is because these missile strikes pose a risk to international shipping. We know that Iran has used these sites to target vessels in the Strait of Hormuz over the last few weeks, ever since this war began. There's been some data analysis today suggesting around 90 vessels have managed to get through these waters since the war began, mainly made up of Iranian oil vessels passing through and heading to the likes of China. We did see one Pakistani.
A large area. On any single slope, the risk can vary widely. The bulletin can't tell us much about a specific slope, so I need to be able to judge it myself. That's where Ski Touren Guru comes in. The new online tool combines the official forecast with data on slope angle and the surrounding terrain. It then estimates the risk for the route. On our route, 2 sections light up in red. It shows the danger spots and their risk level really clearly. It's fantastic. But how dangerous are these spots really? To find out, Kontala uses what he calls a small block test. He cuts out a compact snow block about 30 to 40 centimeters across. The avalanche bulletin mentions weak, old snow. And yes, this snow is made up of angular crystals. This faceted or sugar snow pours through your fingers like sand. But I can't tell whether the layers are well bonded, so I'll test that. To check whether a slab could slide on the sand-like layer, he taps the block from the side. A slab does break loose.
Citing reports from Iran, but also Israeli sources speaking to Israel.
Lara recommends keeping generous spacing on both the ascent and descent. Skiers can learn the method in a one-day course, and when applied correctly, use it to enjoy a safer day on the slopes.
Geologists believe a hidden resource may lie deep inside mountain rock, natural white hydrogen. But how do we find it and get it out of the rock? If we succeed, it could...
Ismail examines whether Indonesia could emerge as a data center hub amid fierce competition in Southeast Asia.
This is Microsoft's newest data center, currently under construction at the Karawang International Industrial City in West Java. The 48-megawatt facility is expected to begin operations later this year. It's part of Microsoft's $1.7 billion investment in Indonesia.
So as we think about where we build these data centers, it's really important that we design for long term. And so they will grow over time as more and more customers are using them and using them for innovative new services as well. So we have additional tranches of land in this same campus here that will build future data centers that will eventually expand this data center region to be hundreds of megawatts in power and in capacity.
Microsoft plans to build 3 more facilities in the Karawang cluster in the coming years. Once completed, the site will house 5 data centers, forming a major regional hub. Indonesia is able to attract the economy along with ample land and access to power. The government is also taking an active role in advancing its ambition to establish the...
Since data center is a part of our priority in attracting investment coming to Indonesia, this should be then given a kind of very dedicated treatment, be it in the regulations, be it in intense incentive, and then also in the investment climate for them.
About 40 kilometers away, Digital Edge operates 2 strategically located data centers in central Jakarta. Its newest facility, Edge 2, opened in 2024 and it's now the largest data center in the heart of the capital. The site has a 23-megawatt power capacity and can house more than 3,400 server racks.
This is outage. Each generator has a capacity of 3.5 megawatts. Together, all 17 units can deliver up to 23 megawatts of power for up to 30
and power capacity. West Java is designed for 500 megawatts of capacity Zs, which offer significant fiscal and non-fiscal incentives.
Land, water, power, and connectivity, it will be very helpful to attract more data center investment in Indonesia. And last approvals to build the data centers.
Real estate and investment
comply by the local as well as the Indonesian government regulations, so making sure there is no disturbance to the community. Each data center providers have their different requirement, but from our experience, it is starting from around 1 kilometers to 5 kilometers away from the community.
If data is the new oil, data centers are the refineries of the digital age. Indonesia's ambition to become a regional hub will depend on whether these corridors can power its economy. Saiful Bari Ismail, CNA, Jakarta.
And still to come, NVIDIA laying out its plans and forecasts at its annual conference. That is running in February, but arrivals elsewhere boosted it to a monthly record.
As a bank who've just turned 90 in 2025, supporting SME is not just part of our business now. It's also woven into our DNA.
What advice would you offer SMEs looking to plan for the next phase of growth?
Number 1 is connectivity. Number 2, and number 3, sustainability. Really using sustainability as a key business driver.
Yung presyo ng mga bilihin sa amin.
What $100 oil means for your investment portfolio. Plus, she borrowed.
One is accepting this sea beauty wave.
senior homes, now to the tomb yard. There is a large potential that needs to be further tapped.
Rockets, mascara, and senior care. China's pockets of growth. Tonight.
Every great leap forward in maritime has been powered by innovation. Today, we're redefining what next generation shipbuilding can be. Together, join us. Register now at apmaritime.com. Official media partner, CNA.
Saturday on Japan Hour. Cycle around Gifu to the sound of rivers and onsens. Fire and steel. Wood carving. Kabuki by local townsfolk. And finally, the silence of the Japan Alps. Japan Hour, Saturday on CNA.
Japan Hour is brought to you by Zip Air, no fuel surcharge from 216 Singapore dollars. And IHI.
We get to the heart of the matter and take stock of the issues you're invested in with on-the-ground reports and wall-to-wall coverage. Viewing it all from a regional
Welcome back. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang has laid out a chip for the Chinese market and continuing to develop the technology used in autonomous vehicles. Ira Spitzer is at the chip giant's flagship event in San Jose, California, and filed this report for CNE.
NVIDIA's annual GTC event here in Silicon Valley has become one of the biggest tech. So many of the chip makers' products are into elements of the artificial intelligence ecosystem. At a special preview of some of its latest
challenges are really in the long tail, right? The edge cases, the events that are rare or difficult. And so what a reasoning model enables the policy to do is to think through
are used in NVIDIA's long-running partnership with Mercedes, and at GTC they announced further partnerships with automakers like BYD and Hyundai. Another NVIDIA.
It's an AI model trained on simulation data, and then once it's trained, it actually gives you the answer in real time.
One of the biggest headlines here involves to sell its most advanced chips. Now, the company's CEO says it will restart production of versions designed to...
Absolutely insane. It's beyond insane. Insane implies that Stephen Miller wrongly believes this. He does not. He is wrongly saying it, but he does not believe it. This is just part of his lifelong quest to blame every single problem on people that have a darker shade of skin than him. But do you know what is actually increasing our deficit? Oh, I don't know, maybe the big, beautiful bill that individually added $3.4 trillion to the debt. Not surprisingly, Donald Trump did a very similar thing in his first term because, and this is a law of politics, when you elect a Republican to the president, you get trillions of dollars given to billionaires and thereby added to our deficits and to the national debt, and you get a war in the Middle East. Those are the two things you get, and most of the time you also end up getting a recession as well. That's the bonus, but that's the actual truth. And the reason they're doing their fraudulent fraud investigation is to distract you from that unavoidable truth. That's my belief. Keith, what do you make of all this?
Yeah, I mean, the only minority in this country making your life worse is it's not trans people, it's not black people, it's not immigrants, it's billionaires. Billionaires are actively hurting you and your ability to have a safe and secure home, to be able to make enough money, to have health care, because I truly think they're just greedy. They want more and more and more. It's a disease, it's a cancer, and it has nothing to do with the hardworking people who come here and try to make a better life for themselves. And it's so disgusting that Stephen Miller does this. Yeah. But I'm glad people are waking up to it. because there is definitely there is a way in which people have, I think, started to understand what's going on here, that they're sick of being pitted against one another, that we have more in common than we do different. And I might not agree with everything someone in MAGA believes in, but I think on the big issues, there's a lot that we do agree on.
Yeah.
And so I just think that we have to refocus this. Whenever they try to pit it on a small group, let's put it on the right small group, which is the billionaires.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I hope that people are both waking up to it and also getting tired of it. Like the constant cyclical lined up with elections, racism and transphobia. Like at a certain point, come on, please, MAGA, tell me that you are getting bored with that. And you know that you're getting screwed over. Like Stephen Miller, he's talking a lot about Medicare going to migrants. You notice he's not talking about the fact that they were willing to and did shut down the government to cut the subsidies that you got screwed over. You're paying more, not because of somebody from Somalia, but because of somebody from Mar-a-Lago. That's why you're paying more for your health insurance. And by someone from El Salvador got Medicare, which they didn't. They're lying to you right there. But they certainly wouldn't allow for fraud in Medicare. Well, from a Guatemalan pardoned or given clemency to over the course of just the first year or so of his presidency. It has been fraudster over fraudster after fraudster of people who have defrauded you, have screwed over tens of thousands or millions of Americans, but he set them free because he likes them way more than he's ever liked you. Now, with that said, let's talk about some of the effect of all of these disastrous policies and terrible moves that they've made. We'll jump now into this. We have yet more bad news for the Republicans when it comes to the midterms, which means we have good news for America. Young voters, some of which voted for Donald Trump and the Republicans in 2024, almost immediately felt a massive amount of buyer's remorse, and that is growing month by month. The Washington Post talked to a number of these voters. They did a focus group of people who had voted for Donald Trump in 2024. 26-year-old Joshua Byers said, "I feel betrayed. I don't know why we're fighting in Iran if we have never been attacked. I just don't understand why." And that could be really not clear even after all that why we're in this war. The rationale seems to change on a daily basis. We have no real stake there, and young voters see that. He goes on to say, and I feel bad for that person, that they feel helpless and adrift in a democracy. They shouldn't feel that way. Now, it's easy to say Donald Trump made them feel that way. I mean, after all, Donald Trump lied to them, and that's true. But you could re-moor them to democracy if you presented an appealing alternative, and that is on the Democrats to do. James Weiss, the 23-year-old arcade technician from North Carolina, said, "I wouldn't even say it's a living, it's more survival," talking about the state of the economy for young people. And polling overall definitely reflects what they're finding in the focus group. Washington Post, ABC, Ipsos did a poll last month, found 70% of 18 to 29-year-olds approve. That is very low approval. Young people who supported Trump are also notably less enthusiastic about voting despite their approval, with 51% of 18 to 39-year-olds as a solution to this problem. It's not like policy or legislation or anything like that, but he has been dancing with Jake Paul, so that'll win over some people. He solved the affordability crisis. Keith, what do you think?
Have you seen that Jake Paul video? It's just awful. It's absolutely awful.
All of them have been, actually, historically.
But what's interesting is because I thought it was actually quite interesting in the 2024 election when he was engaging with Gen Z. It felt like there was like a newness to it that just doesn't exist now. Now it feels like they're just trying to use him up for everything he has left. But I mean, I feel bad for the of your point about Democrats need to offer something. This is something I talk about so much that we can't. I'm sick of being post-Trump, and Democrats ran on Trump bad for about 10 years now, and Trump's more power. He might not be popular, but he's more powerful than he's ever been before. So we have to offer something different. What we've done in the past doesn't work, and so we have to wake up as a party and start to offer a vision of what this country could be without Donald Trump.
100%. And, like for 2028, we're going to have a long primary where we can do that. But there's also literally no reason to wait that long. And I understand that, like, let's say you're a congressional progressive or something, like you're not going to be able to get any bills passed. And I get that. But you should to fall into that trap because there's so much bad stuff going on. But that's why, like, I was a big fan of the fact that AOC and Bernie Sanders did their Fight the Oligarchy tour.
Yes,
sort of as we're surprised that
Kat Abagzala, what's her name?
Abagzale.
Yes, she and like to your point, she doesn't have power, but she still put her body on the line for ICE.
Yeah, that's true.
Against ICE, and so that I think people are just looking for folks who are gonna put themselves out there, who are gonna show that they are willing to fight.
Yeah,
I think the base of the Democratic Party wants it. I think most Americans want something different. And so
the end of the first hour of the show, but we do have a lot to talk about, including some good news when it comes to attempts to fight back against the anti-vaccine agenda that we've seen play out over the
Non-farm payrolls, minus 92,000, minus 92,000. That is a biggie.
And it's a biggie in the wrong direction. Hello, everybody. David Schuster here. Headline, U.S. payrolls unexpectedly fell by 92,000 in February. Unemployment rises to 4.4%. And you have to go back to the COVID pandemic to find a jobs report this awful.
Minus 92,000. Well, what would that comp to? Minus, 185 in December of 2020. There's where our comp is.
Even the Trump cheerleaders on Fox Business were grim, noting the immediate plunge in the Dow Jones Industrial Average by 400 points.
As you can see the market reacting, we are also seeing the unemployment rate tick up to 4.4%, a loss of factory jobs of 12,000, government jobs, a loss of 6,000, private sector jobs, a loss of 86,000.
And on top of the wide-ranging job losses in February, another key economic indicator, labor force participation, also plunged.
If we look at labor force participation, wow, a big drop, 62.0. We're expecting 62.5. 62.0 would be the weakest, and I have to really go back on this. 62.0 would equal D's of 21 to find a smaller number. You're all the way back to November of 21 when it was 61.9.
That's another COVID-era month. So again, to find job market and labor participation drops this awful, you have to go all the way back to the COVID pandemic crash. Adding to the shock, the analysts' predictions the past few days suggested the changes, good or bad, would be moderate.
Again, all of these numbers, to be clear here, are the opposite of the estimates that we got. This report, these numbers are certainly not the expectations whatsoever. A loss of 92,000 jobs. The Street, again, was looking for a gain of 59,000 jobs. And this also flies in the face of the ADP numbers that we got on Wednesday, where we saw actually hiring in the private sector, construction, education, and healthcare.
But the ADP numbers are a survey that many analysts say are unreliable. The government's jobs report, by contrast, is more comprehensive. And keep in mind, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which produces the jobs report, underwent major changes last year. Donald Trump didn't like the Bureau's methodology and numbers, so he fired the head of the government agency. But now, even amidst the Trump thumb on the scale of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the job market numbers are
where we have been working on this issue for many years, through Operation Happy. But we also realize...
So Israel saying that the Iranian intelligence minister is being killed. What else have they been saying, Noor?
Well, the Israeli government is conducting its communication about this war almost like a reality TV show, Rob. We've heard from the Israeli Minister of Defense saying that all the brakes are off, that the Israeli military can carry out assassinations without prior authorization. No more political authorization needed to assassinate Iranian officials or Hezbollah figures. And that is a significant shift because it does signal that Israel is not going to be holding back. He also said that there will be more surprises to come. Again, the reality show kind of atmosphere that the Israeli government is trying to give to its public, signaling that it's comfortable, that it has command over the skies, and that it has no restrictions on the kind of actions it will take, not just to assassinate, but to undermine the foundations of the very system of government in Iran, to topple it, if not now, then if and when the war is over, by undermining its ability to stay in control or to rebuild for many years to come. Those are the words of Israeli officials.
Okay, let's go from Ramallah to Tehran and Mohammed Val. Mohammed, talk to us about the intelligence minister. What impact is that news having, and have we had any confirmation yet from Iran of the killing of the intelligence minister?
No, we haven't had any confirmation so far from the Iranian authorities, but it has become a pattern now that their response and the clarifications about assassinations take 1 or 2 days. So, I mean, people here are not ruling out the veracity of the news coming from Israel. So,